Hello! Welcome back to Storytime with Quefish, Drunk Storytime with Quefish. You would think that I would know that. So, in the grand tradition of buying things based on what they look like or what they're named, I have bought a plum wine called Fucky. It's probably actually Fuchi, but I'm going to call it Fucky. Can't imagine why. So, unlike last week, hopefully this one is actually decent. Oh my God. Because that wine last week made me so sad that I couldn't even drink anymore. Oh, wow. Whew. That's going to be some good stuff. So, I'm going to get started. I'm going to find some stories, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. This is actually my second glass, which makes me very happy because that means that I actually like it. I don't think it's kind of strange. I've had a number of different plum wines, and they're all maybe a little bit different level of sweetness, but underneath it all, they all taste the same. It's not like regular wine. Regular wine, it all tastes different, and it's not all good. I've yet to have a bad plum wine. So, officially endorsed plum wine. Not sponsored, but endorsed. So, first we have Entanglednow and their crack series. There will be paperwork. Actually, it's not a series, it's one story with multiple chapters. I learned before not to say story and series interchangeably. So, there will be paperwork. Explicit adult content. Collection of short Good Omens works, mostly under 1,000 words, written for a variety of mini challenges, games, and prompts. Sounds like fun. These are all cold reads. Blind reading. This first one is for the prompt Aziraphale's Magic Act, which he's so damn cute. So, for your entertainment. Is this going to take long? Aziraphale pulls a face, which clearly calls for enthusiasm and patience rather than griping. Fine, fine. Crowley crosses his arms and huffs his way into a chair. But I'm only putting up with this because your sad and desperate need for an audience provokes the one molecule of sympathy I have in my body. Yeah, just the one molecule. It's softy. Aziraphale disappears behind the stage that he's created in the space between two shelves using sheets and 3 pushed together tables. It's currently hidden behind a long red curtain, which looks incredibly cheap. Crowley suspects Aziraphale would insist that was part of its charm. The curtain is dramatically tugged away to reveal an enormous tank of water, the hatch at the top angled open. Crowley makes a vaguely disgusted noise. An underwater escape? Really? He watches Aziraphale demonstrate the sturdiness of the tank as if there are 50 other people watching and not just one bored demon. Then he handcuffs himself, tosses Crowley the key, and climbs inside. This is ridiculous, Crowley tells him loudly. He sinks lower in his chair as a form of protest. Aziraphale makes an overly dramatic show of struggling underwater. You're ridiculous. You don't even need to breathe. There's a heroic strain at the handcuffs, a panicked puffing of cheeks. And you're overacting. You always overact. You take all the tension out of it. You can't even... Ta-da! Aziraphale's voice says, right next to Crowley's ear. Fucking shit! Crowley lunges out of the chair, crashes into a stack of books, and ends up on the floor, tangled around at least 3 chair legs. Aziraphale is leaning over him, completely dry, smiling like the smuggest fucking bastard imaginable. Crowley takes a second to quietly fume and to convince his organs that they belong inside him. Aziraphale, he says slowly, did you make a double of yourself? Aziraphale lifts a finger. No, I acquired an unrevealed twin. The smile expands like he thinks he's been terribly clever. Crowley shakes his head in disgust, as best as he can while lying on the floor. Still cheating, he hisses. There's the wet patter of feet, and a second Aziraphale is looking down at Crowley from the other side. They're easy to tell apart at this point, because the second is very wet and still wearing handcuffs. You didn't even get out of the handcuffs, Crowley points out irritably. Aziraphale actually looks embarrassed about that. The second Aziraphale gathers his hands together and looks embarrassed too. There are still some kinks to work out, he allows. Now, there's a thought. Crowley carefully untangles himself from the chair and rises, dusts himself off. What else can he do? The double. Aziraphale considers the other version of himself. Oh, pretty much anything I want him to. Oh. The angel is now wearing a rather appealing flush and considering his doppelganger with a completely different sort of expression. Crowley hooks his fingers through the link of the handcuffs and tugs the dripping angel closer. Right. Upstairs, both of you. We have some kinks to work out. Oh, God, so cute. Sorry. Okay. Moving on to chapter 2. Putting the work in. This is for the prompt housework with sex toys, masturbation, sexual fantasies, and Snake Crowley. If it wasn't for the housework part, I would just be all about that. Crowley's hoping to find a way to kill time, but his brief cleaning spree is derailed by an unexpected find. It's 7 hours until he can pick Aziraphale up. Crowley knows that's not a lot of time, all things considered, but the thought of spending it slumped in a chair doing nothing, even if it is an easy way to fill his sloth quota, rankles. It's not long enough for a good nap, and too long to go and buy Aziraphale something sweet and delicious. He'll just end up bored outside then. He could clean. That's a people thing to do, isn't it? No, it's a thing people do. That's a people thing to do. Tidy up their living space to reflect the fact that they have it totally together. Only Crowley doesn't own a Hoover, or brushes, or disinfecting floor and or wall cleaning liquids. The bath and shower clean themselves. Toilet brushes, he's pretty sure they're a thing. He's never used the toilet, but there's probably some dust in there or something. Brushes. Do you brush a carpet? He vaguely remembers something about shampoo and carpets, but that can't be... Oh my God, please get him out there with like some... Oh God, like some Pantene Pro V and just... shampoo and carpets, but that can't be right. He also remembers that people used to take their rugs up and beat them. Do people still do that? Do you have to clean under the carpet? Oh my God, I'm just picturing him taking like an entire house carpet outside because he thought that it occurs to him that he doesn't have any carpets or rugs, so the whole point is fucking moot. Still, it's something to do, so he pushes himself upright and saunters his way through the flat. judging the surfaces for possible dirt content. How much is too much? Does it have to be visible? Because Crowley's not that great at picking out small particles, especially if they're sort of grayish, which raises the disturbing possibility that there's dirt all over his flat and he's the only one who hasn't noticed. Satan, that's gonna bother him now. All of his visitors are just too nice to say that, oh my God, it's disgusting in here. Still, it's something to do. I already read that paragraph. When he reaches the bedroom, he stops, surveys his perfectly made bed. Then he gets on his knees and looks under the bed. Huh. Crowley reaches an arm into the space until his fingers snag on a dark shape that had rolled all the way against the wall. He drags it out. Wondered where you got to, he grumbles. It's a dildo. A weighty monster of a thing in black silicone that he remembers the package had labeled Hercules. It's been living under the bed for a while by the look of it. Dust collected around the head like a little crown of fluff. Blech. He miracles it clean with a snap, then miracles the rest of the floor for good measure. Crowley remembers the last time he'd used it, kneeling at the head of the bed, the pillows flung out of the way and his face pressed hard to the wall. He'd had a hand fisted tight in his hair, arsehole stretched hot and stinging around the width of the thing. He'd been indulging in fantasy number 164. Cherubim soldier captures wily demon and refuses to let him go until he's taken every pleasure he can from his body. Yeah, that was a good one. I'm gonna need this list of 1 to 164 at least. He'd lost all feeling in his legs for an hour after that. He must have kicked it off the bed after, and it had rolled underneath it. Crafty thing. He'd forgotten how much he liked this one. He'd attached it to the floor in here a few times to indulge in fantasy number 56. Angel saves wretched demon from captivity and or gruesome death, and demon thanks him the only way he knows how, as many times as necessary until the angel is satisfied and the poor demon is exhausted and aching, utterly wrung out and sloppy with cum. I really need the rest of this list. Not gonna lie. Crowley's familiar with angelic stamina, so that's really a long weekend sort of fantasy. Oh, and not to mention the time he'd put it on the wall and got down on his knees for fantasy number 12. Angel guarding gates of Eden indulges in forbidden dirty blowjob from his hereditary enemy under cover of darkness. That one had a few variations. Sometimes the angel was rough with him, pulling at his hair and calling him names, thumbs holding his mouth open so he drooled all over himself. Other times the angel just sighed out soft and surprised noises, called him sweet and good and pretty. It really depended on how much Crowley hated himself at the time. He'd even done fantasy number 284 with, it's a much longer list now. Soldier that's come to kill Medusa seduces the creature instead. Ooh. That one had him pressed face first to the wall, one leg drawn up and held to the cold plaster, the other hand curled behind him, pushing the thing in slow and deep while Crowley hissed as much as he liked. That was a great one for getting fucked from behind, pretending that he couldn't look at the nameless soldier, for fear that his penetrating stare would turn him to stone. He'd even made snake hair for it. For authenticity. That had been a fucking trip. Honestly, this is starting to look like a great way to waste 7 hours. Crowley considers it for a minute. The floor is nice and clean now. It would be a shame not to take advantage of it. And he's feeling a little adventurous. He crouches down, attaches the dildo to the wall roughly. No. He attaches the dildo to the wall, roughly 4.5 inches from the floor, then adjusts the angle a couple of times until he's satisfied. An extra miracle leaves the thing slick and glistening before Crowley collapses in a pile of shining black coils. He circles a few times, stretches out the shape of himself, then rolls his red underbelly toward the wall. His cloacal scale lines up perfectly with the jutting length of silicon on the wall. Just right. Yes, can we get the full list of that? All right, Chapter 3, History Lesson. Aziraphale takes Crowley to the museum, and they come across some of Crowley's old holiday pictures. For the prompt, drugs. Crowley, Aziraphale, Crowley, other, drug use, accidental drug use, sex while on drugs, snake anatomy, snake sex, and egg laying. Aziraphale takes the very rare opportunity to invite Crowley out for a change. There's a new exhibit at the museum from the city of I'm gonna look this up. La, la, la. Let's see. Teoti. Google knew what I was looking for. And how do you pronounce it? Pronounce. How to pronounce it?
Teotihuacan.
What?
Teotihuacan.
I can't make that sound. Let's hear that one more time.
Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan.
I really hope
Teotihuacan.
that my microphone is picking that up, because that's just not right. Hopefully I only have to say it once. There's a new exhibit at the museum from the city of Teotihuacan that he's been meaning to see. Aziraphale's knowledge of Mesoamerica is somewhat limited, but he knows Crowley spent some time over there. However, the demon seems far less enthusiastic once they actually reach the exhibit, which is mostly made up of weaponry, stone carvings, and small statues. He's frowning behind his glasses as Aziraphale leads them deeper into the room. When did you say this was from again? Crowley's foot is tapping an irregular, nervous beat on the floor. 100 BC to 600 AD, I believe, Aziraphale tells him, while admiring a small, exquisitely carved figure decorated with jade stones. Narrows it down, Crowley mutters. He continues to fidget as they pass display cases that house a variety of bronze and gold artifacts. Aziraphale leans in to get a better look at an ancient stone carving, wonders if Crowley can read the pictographs. A particularly fascinating one appears to be a giant winged serpent with 6 arms, which looks oddly familiar. There's no color on the stone, but Aziraphale suspects it may have originally been painted black and red. He turns to the demon, who's now clearly lurking behind him, and raises an eyebrow. Crowley heaves a sigh that sounds pained. Yes, I may have partied with the locals a few times, he admits, though he's wearing a tight, hunted sort of expression that tells Aziraphale there's more to the story. Crowley's sunglasses drift in the direction of the exit, which suggests that this is a period of his life he wasn't expecting to share today. Or perhaps ever. Were you pretending to be someone in particular? Aziraphale asks curiously. Crowley shakes his head. I don't think any of them noticed the eyes, but then there was a celebration or something. The cup they handed me at the start of the night might not have been entirely alcohol. And I got into the spirit of things. Aziraphale considers the carved stone depiction of him with its serpentine head, arcing wings, and 6 clawed arms. Obviously, it left me a bit confused about what bits went where, Crowley forces out. And Aziraphale can tell that his eyes are moving over the rest of the carved images as if searching for something. But they didn't seem to mind. They were more than happy to... He cuts himself off, and there's a touch of redness to his ears. I remember having a good time. In the next panel, the winged snake god seems to be demonstrating the art of autofellatio. He remembers having a good time. Clearly, Aziraphale offers. Crowley spots it too. Oh, for fuck's sake. Of course they immortalized it in stone for everyone to see. He throws up his hands. And don't give me that expression, like you haven't accidentally taken drugs with new friends and gotten roped into all manner of reckless stupidity. Aziraphale has been slowly moving along the exhibit, and Crowley has been following him, now with a reluctant sort of inevitability. They've reached a larger stone carving under glass. It's a series of smaller pictographs and carved images, all of which seem to depict the winged serpent god in various complicated sexual positions with the locals. Sometimes two at the same time, given the unique arrangement of Crowley's serpent anatomy. However, that is far from the most adventurous image. Oh, God. This cheerful fellow. Cheerful fellow seems to be elbow deep in your cloaca, as Aziraphale points out. Crowley whines in his throat, mouth opening and shutting as if he's going to attempt to deny it, but the carving is rather explicitly detailed, especially the curve of Crowley's tail folding upwards in filthy ecstasy. He gives a slow deflating hiss and shoves his hands into his pockets, his whole body gently vibrating. This cheerful fellow. Sorry. Okay, yes, we're done the humiliating holiday pictures portion of the day. How about we go see the Greeks now? You like the Greeks, they wrote stuff. One hand ejects itself from Crowley's pocket, waves in the direction of the doorway as if to sweep Aziraphale from the room. Oh, he absolutely has to know what's on the last 2 carvings now. Crowley's face does something panicked and unhappy when Aziraphale straightens up and moves further along the display. But he doesn't try and stop him. He shuffles after him as though dragged against his will, a quiet hiss rolling in his throat. Still, Aziraphale finds that he's not quite prepared for what's been carved carefully into the stone. You appear to be laying a sacred egg, he hears himself say. Fuck. Crowley looks around as if to make sure no one else is hearing their conversation. Yes, all right, fine. It was a very strange, very drug-fueled orgy that went on for 12 days, and I may have ended up confused about how many limbs I was supposed to have at a time. And yes, there may have been a bit too much explicit worshipping of the giant winged snake god going on. Crowley glances up at the very last carving, which shows a carpet of very small snakes being ushered down a series of stone steps and into the jungle. And yes, roughly 80% of the snake species in Central and South America may be related to me. Are you happy now? That's awesome. Happy now? Yes, we are. That's awesome. So these were from Entangled Now. There will be paperwork. Thanks for joining me.